Oh wow, the mic wasn't even on the whole time. That's crazy.
A global outcry after the discovery of mass graves in two Gaza hospitals. Israel is under pressure to provide answers, but will it? And how will it be held to account? This is Inside Story.
Welcome everybody to the stream. Usually at night I'm up this late, either working on some stuff or just de-stressing from all the work that I do throughout the day. We work in the graveyard shift, or whatever the case may be, and you just need something to listen to or someone to talk to. I'm here. It sounds like a radio show, but I'm here. Stream is called I'm Just Here. So enjoy.
Hello and welcome to the program. I'm Mohammed Jamjoum. More bodies have been found in mass graves in Gaza after Israeli forces withdrew from the Nasser and Al-Shifa medical compounds they had besieged for weeks. The Palestinian Civil Defense says there is clear evidence the Israeli army committed crimes against humanity by carrying out summary executions. The UN and EU are calling for urgent investigations, and the US says it wants answers too. International law demands a thorough and independent inquiry to uncover the truth behind these deaths and ensure accountability. But will Israel ever be held to account for its actions in Gaza? We'll put that to our guests in a moment. First, this report from Axel Zaimovich.
A haunting sight at the Nasser Medical Facility in Khan Yunis, where bodies remain unclaimed. Evidence of a mass grave has come to light after the Israeli army left the compound. These are not the only victims found in Gaza. At the beginning of April, similar discoveries were made at Al-Shifa Hospital, following an Israeli military operation. Satellite images confirmed the existence of two mass graves on these hospital premises.
We feel the need to raise the alarm because clearly there have been multiple bodies discovered. We don't know how many. There are reports that some of them had their hands tied, which of course indicates serious violations of international human rights law and international humanitarian law.
Women, wounded, and older people buried deep and covered in waste are among the victims. As the bodies begin to decompose, there's a pressing call for an investigation. Experts say an independent inquiry needs a neutral party.
If you want an independent organization to do it, go to a country, if you find one that's willing to go into Gaza, that is not engaged in the conflict by the supply of arms or otherwise, and ask them if they will put together a forensic team that will go in and do the job. And I think that happened occasionally in the former Yugoslavia, where you had a great deal of mass grave work that had to be done.
Forensic investigations were conducted after mass graves were found in Srebrenica and other towns in Bosnia and Herzegovina. The International Commission on Missing Persons, initiated by former US President Bill Clinton, helped in identifying victims and prosecuting war crimes. With similar investigations underway in Ukraine and Syria after the discovery of mass burial sites, many wonder if the international focus will shift to Gaza. The question is if Israel will allow impartial investigators to enter the Strip, since it already stands accused of genocide at the International Court of Justice. Addressing these mass graves is crucial not only for the families seeking closure, but for the broader goals of finding justice and preventing such acts from happening ever again. Axel Zaimovich, Al Jazeera, for Inside Story.
All right, let's go ahead and bring in our guests. In Doha, Mansour Shuman, Gaza citizen journalist who took refuge at Nasser Hospital for months during the conflict. In The Hague, Andreas Kleiser, Director for Policy and Cooperation at the International Commission on Missing Persons. And in Geneva, Kenneth Roth, Visiting Professor at Princeton School for Public and International Affairs and the former Executive Director of Human Rights Watch. A warm welcome to you all, and thanks so much for joining us today on Inside Story. Mansour, let me start with you today. The Palestinian Civil Defense Team says evidence from mass graves in the grounds of Nasser Hospital and Khan Yunis clearly shows the Israeli army carried out summary executions. You're in touch with people on the ground there. You spent so much time there yourself. What are you hearing?
What I'm hearing is that this is yet another mass grave found in another hospital in another part of Gaza Strip. We found something similar in the north of Gaza, in the middle region of Gaza, in Gaza city itself, and now we're finding it in Nasser Hospital. Around 400 bodies have now been found, covered in different kinds of plastic covers, different colors. Many of the people have been identified, and some of them I have known personally, whether they were nurses, doctors, patients in the hospital, or even women and children who were residents of the ground in Nasser Hospital there. At the same time, many bodies there have been found but have not been identified yet because their limbs have been cut, their heads are not there anymore. Many of them have lost their organs and then zipped up again. It is horrendous. It is surreal that after over 200 days, we are still talking about investigations and forensic studies where we all know who the perpetrator of these war crimes are. And to be honest, I don't know for how long the world can stay silent regarding what is happening right now. In addition to this mass grave in Nasser Hospital, let me remind the viewers that there are tens of thousands of those not only that have been killed and injured, but those who we do not know where they are. So we are feared of seeing so many other mass graves similar to this one. And what a shame that the international community is still quiet and is still not doing anything to stop these genocide attempts against the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Kenneth, Gaza is a war zone. How is it possible to go about gathering evidence when this kind of conflict is going on and so much evidence can and is being destroyed?
Well, I think what you speak to is, first of all, the importance of physical presence. And the Israeli government has blocked physical presence, both by foreign journalists, but also by human rights defenders. And perhaps, most important, because here we're speaking about accountability, they have refused access to investigators from the International Criminal Court, the international body that has jurisdiction over war crimes in Gaza and could very well prosecute the perpetrators here. So it's not impossible to do an investigation in the middle of a war. I mean, this would require, simply cooperation by the both sides. I'm sure that, Hamas would give safe passage. The real question is, would Israel? But Israel doesn't want to give safe passage. It doesn't want to allow these kind of independent investigations. It just wants to kind of sweep the issue under the rug, or maybe it'll do what it usually does, which is to say, we're going to investigate ourselves, which typically results in either we never hear anything again or a whitewash. And I think it's, that whitewashing, which is why both the United Nations and the European Union have stressed the importance of an independent investigation. That means not an Israeli self-investigation. Now, the US government hasn't yet gone that far. They have sought a thorough and transparent investigation, but they didn't use the magic word, an independent investigation. But that's what we need. We need somebody other than the Israelis to look at this, and we need access sooner rather than later because, bodies decompose and it's more difficult over time to figure out exactly what happened.
Andreas, when it comes to mass grave sites and investigating and preserving forensic evidence, how crucial is it that professional forensic experts with the right kind of equipment, with the needed resources, that they're able to access those sites as quickly as possible so that the sites aren't contaminated?
Yes, thank you indeed. It's absolutely critical that proper forensic investigations are carried out. This entails employing forensic archaeologists and anthropologists. It is likewise critical these investigations are conducted in an official framework. So the question that immediately imposes itself, who can mandate effectively an independent investigation? Now we know that steps have been taken by the United Nations, so potentially that would provide a framework if an invitation is extended to an international organization that can assist in such investigations. Now, we've heard already that identifications of victims are taking place. That is presumably done not necessarily employing scientific means, which incurs a certain risks for these identifications with other.
Let me go get my headphones.
Actually, I should just get out of this call in this room. I'm still under Nile. So let me just call you directly.
Oh.
All right, here we go. What's up? What you said?
No, I was asking if you're still streaming.
Yeah, just started. I'm only been on for like 14 minutes now.
Oh, true. It's true that I didn't see the notifications.
Oh, that's YouTube blocking me as usual.
Okay then.
YouTube doing the do.
All right.
Ouch, ouch, ouch. All right, all right.
It is now Friday. It's now Friday, and it's my mom's birthday. Of course,
Oh,
I'm supposed to have to go call her. Go call her in the morning. Give her happy birthday wishes.
Happy birthday, Joe. How young is she?
She is in her late 40s.
Well, that's not bad.
She should be 50. She should be 50 right now. Oh yeah. But of course, if you saw her, you would think that she's you wouldn't think that you wouldn't think that she's pushing 50.
I would think she's what?
Now, if you saw her, you wouldn't think that she's pushing 50. You would think that she is much younger than that.
Oh, okay.
There's a time when my people mistake me and my mom as brother and sisters. Yeah. Oh, hey. I forgot to turn off my key. It's been ending, but I forgot to press stop streaming. Stop streaming. There you go.
And you're just now ending your stream.
I mean, the stream has ended. Just I just simply put it in the ended stream, but I forgot to press the stop stream.
Oh, okay.
Anyway. Oh, a new Demon Slayer game. Demon Slayer Sweep the Board. What the hell is this? The anime Demon Slayer makes its board increase in intelligence and abilities of the 4 players. Roll the dice and aim to be from this Demon Slayer group. Take control of icon characters, fight demons by ways of story cards. Okay, go click the detail and see it. I'm intrigued by it. Okay, $9.99. Okay. This is ridiculous. Oh, so basically, it's Mario Party but Demon Slayer. Interesting. That's a very interesting. Of course it's from Sega, of course. Of course it's from Sega. Sega decided to, hey, I see that Nintendo has been, been releasing nothing but Mario Party games. Maybe you should make a Mario Party of our own for the games for it. Oh yeah, that would really get people going. When was this released? Wow, it just released today. Damn. It just released today in Europe. That's interesting. I mean, I guess when the whole business stuff or whatever is done, I guess I will just, get this and see how it is. Because it looks interesting. I just need to get it. Well, it's not a need. It's more of a want, not a need. What I do want to get myself an Xbox Series X. Because forget the PS5, I don't get an Xbox Series X because like, most of my relatives are on the Xbox Series X, so I'm not going to get it. Plus Game Pass is more convenient. I want to get it during my birthday time, but I have to push that aside.
have to be confirmed. That should also be included. So to point to to previous experience, of course, the International Commission on Missing Persons (ICMP) has been extensively assisting with excavations, mass grave examinations, recovering victims, and identifying remains in support of the domestic and also international authorities, also in the context of criminal investigations, in particular in the former Yugoslavia. What is critical to keep in mind is that all investigations should be done with a view of collecting evidence to a standard that will hold up in a court of law. It is clear that alleged perpetrators have a different narrative of mass graves than the public or witnesses will present. And to have a convincing account, provide irrefutable evidence of what happened, it is important to have experts of a high caliber involved.
Mansour, you spoke earlier about the frustration when it comes to hearing international actors and rights bodies call for investigations, and yet still atrocities are happening. I want to ask you about the fact that after the discovery of this latest mass grave, there are more calls. There are calls from the EU and the UN for an independent investigation. You have the US calling for a transparent investigation, but they're not going as far as calling for an independent investigation. Do you think there will be sufficient international pressure now that this could actually happen, or will it be more of the same?
Unfortunately, I think the way the laws are set up in the world right now, especially on the international stage, is that the support and the one who is right is the one who is strong, the one who has the power. And right now, the veto power right now is in the hands of the US and allies of the Zionist state. Unfortunately, I do not have a lot of confidence that the international agencies can do anything. I remember when I was in Nasser Hospital, together with tens of thousands of others of refugees in the hospital and in the schools around us, we were told by these international agencies that we were in a safe place, we were in a safe zone, that the IDF will not attack, and that we have nothing to worry, we have nothing to fear. However, on one morning, the IDF came in with their trucks, with their forklifts, with their tanks, with their soldiers, and attacked the people inside the schools, inside the Nasser hospital, and forced people like myself to flee. And in addition to that, it took with it hundreds of lives. it's like we're talking about two different parallel worlds here. You're talking about a world where theory and human rights talk about what should and will happen, but the reality is that what is happening right now cannot wait for these international agencies to talk to us about what should happen, because time is running out. Time is running out. And what has happened in Nasser Hospital now is going to happen soon in Rafah, in the hospitals there, to the people there. And the blood of these people will be stained on these international organization reputations and these countries around the world claiming human rights and democracies forever. What is happening right now will be a stain on everyone right now who is calling for the right thing to be done, but is not doing it. We need action. Enough words. We need action on the ground right now.
Kenneth, I saw you reacting there to what Mansour was saying. He's talking about the fact that he, along with others, were housing themselves in these medical complexes that are supposed to be protected under international humanitarian law. And yet, time and again, we've seen these hospitals and medical complexes come under siege in Gaza. Will these words translate into action? Will Israel be held to account for this? What needs to happen for this to stop?
Well, first, on the point of the hospitals, I mean, hospitals are presumptively protected. They can lose their protected status if the other side uses them for military purposes. Now, Israel has, a history here of saying that Hamas, for example, was supposed to have a major command center under Al-Shifa Hospital. And that was going to justify Israel going in and, basically occupying the biggest hospital in Gaza at a point of acute need, at a point where people are being bombed every day. This is exactly when you need a hospital. And Israel took it over, evacuated the patients. And that was the first time. There have been two takeovers in Al-Shifa. But, when they, at the end of that, to show this supposed command center, what did they show us? A handful of rifles, a little bit of military equipment, one tunnel that a former Israeli prime minister said, actually, we, the Israelis, built back when we controlled Gaza City. So, they've been very unsuccessful in demonstrating the military justification for taking over these hospitals. And in a sense, what you see is they seem to be weaponizing Palestinians' need for healthcare, a moment of acute need, by depriving them, of the physical facilities. I mean, now I think the WHO says 10 out of the 36 hospitals are minimally functioning. Israel has been blockading, really preventing much of the necessary medical equipment from coming in. So, this is a direct assault on the Palestinian civilian population. Now, the good question is, well, what can we do about this? And let's talk about, both the International Criminal Court and the U.S. government, because I think these are parallel processes. The International Criminal Court, I mean, it is difficult at this moment. It doesn't have permission to go into Gaza. So something, like a mass grave, which really does require a forensic investigation, as we've just heard, it's going to be hard for it to do that. But there are major war crimes where the International Criminal Court already has the evidence. One, which is not even about Gaza, is the settlements. The settlements are a war crime. They're a violation of Article 49 of the Fourth Geneva Convention, which prohibits an occupying power from sending its population into occupied territory. Karim Khan, the chief prosecutor, has that evidence. The people ordering the settlements are going up to the top. He hasn't done anything. The other thing that he has, he's talked repeatedly about this, he has the evidence that Israel is blocking food, its starvation strategy. He doesn't need, more evidence from inside Gaza. He has that. He's threatened to act on it, but he hasn't.
Andreas, let me ask you to follow up on a point that Kenneth was making there, because I saw you reacting to some of what he was saying. When it comes to these issues of international justice, without an independent investigation taking place, can the discovery of, let's say, this latest mass grave, can that be added to some of these forums where cases may be happening? Like, let's say, the International Court of Justice, the case that South Africa brought against Israel, accusing it of genocide in Gaza, or if the ICC were to take up the case and get involved later?
From our experience, also going back to the former Yugoslavia and the trials that took place in The Hague, including the trials of Mr. Mladic and Dr. Karadzic concerning crimes in and around Srebrenica. it is crucial to be able to provide evidence of the circumstances of the establishment of these mass graves, of who is in these mass graves, of some evidence of crimes, including trauma. So it takes anthropological examinations of the remains. Otherwise, it is perfectly possible for alleged perpetrators to claim that mass graves are in fact, and that exists too, legitimate in the sense that remains found in these mass graves, died of various causes, died in combat, were brought to two hospital locations where they eventually died. And mass graves can be legitimately used for purposes of
I'm trying not to
dignified treatment of human remains on a temporary basis until proper rituals and commemorations can be carried out. All of these arguments have been made in trials before the International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia and needed to be refuted with strong and clear evidence.
Mansour, if I could ask you more of a personal question. You talked about your experience there at Nasser Hospital and those whom you know who have been there. When it comes to making the choice to try and take refuge at a site where people are being told that it is protected, and yet the fear is that it will not be protected, that it will be attacked, what is that choice like for Palestinians in Gaza who want to just protect themselves and their family members?
I think the Palestinians in Gaza right now believe they don't have a choice. They never did have a choice before the Nasser hospital raid or after it. They're just trying to seek refuge wherever they can, away from the IDF and its genocide attempt. Please remember that drones is always hovering over them 24/7, in kind of a psychological warfare. In addition to the expectation that at any moment they can be targeted, their loved ones can be targeted, they can lose further things that they have owned, whether it be tangible or intangible. I mean, we're talking about the physical impact in Gaza, but later on we are going to be starting to measure the mental impact, the trauma impact. And I think that the time for investigation and looking into who is perpetrating I think we're all done with this. Right now we're talking about taking action. And a big salutation to the tens of thousands of students across the world, especially in the United States universities, who are taking on their campuses, saying that, it's time to free Palestine. It's time to ensure that Gaza has a permanent ceasefire and that aid reaches the people there. The politicians and those in power need to listen to this generation that is now looking at things from an impartial view, seeing the evidence firsthand being sent live on television, on different social media platforms. The Palestinians on the ground will stay steadfast. They know that they are on the right side of history. They do not want a repeat of 1948 and 1967. And they cannot do that without the support of people like here at Al Jazeera, trying to show the news. People around the world demonstrating, continuing to boycott, continuing to lobby their politicians. It's important that everyone continues to do that, because all of that results in a positive impact on the people on the ground in Palestine, who continue to try to hear the news, try to get the aid that is reaching them in trickles. I was talking to a friend who is in Khan Yunis, and he was telling me about his brother that was in one of these mass graves, and he said that, Mansour, despite us seeing all of this, at least I know that I've seen my brother. I've seen him in his flesh, and I know what happened to him. Hopefully he's in a better place in paradise. But think about the thousands who still don't know the fate of their loved ones. Again, people in Gaza are looking for action. So we are asking those international organizations, we are asking the UN, the ICJ, to do right now what Palestinians need. Put an end to this war, make a permanent ceasefire, ensure there's a no-fly zone above Palestine, announce a free Palestinian state, and make sure that aid reaches 2.3 million Palestinians that need it right
Things
now.
are okay on my end.
Kenneth, I saw you reacting to some of what Mansour was saying there. It
Could be
looked like you
better,
wanted to
but
jump
at
in,
least
so
I'm
please
not
go ahead.
dead.
Yeah, I mean, we're focusing most of this show on the justice, the accountability question, which is, it's important. And obviously, if Karim Khan were to charge, Netanyahu, for example, that would be a big deterrent for these kinds of war crimes. But, I think Mansour is absolutely right that the real issue here is stopping the killing. How do you stop the bombardment of civilians? How do you stop the starvation of civilians? And, the one person in the world who really has the capacity to exert sufficient pressure on Netanyahu is Joe Biden. And we saw that even when he sort of vaguely threatened to condition U.S. aid if Netanyahu didn't allow in more food, suddenly a little bit more food was allowed in. But Biden has not really been willing to exert that linkage. He hasn't been willing to say,
Yeah, this shit
I'm going to
happening in
stop
the world right now?
arming and funding your war crimes until they stop, period. And, he at this point is still discussing with Netanyahu, how do you attack Rafah? How do you move 1.4 million people to a beachfront that is utterly unprepared to receive them, and where, given history, Israel would just bomb them anyhow. So, what we really need is Biden to pressure Netanyahu. And Biden's only going to do that if he sees a real political cost for his current arming and complicity in those war crimes.
Damn,
So
that means the
that's why the
Palestinian
protests
people
in the
just
United States really
got the
matter.
whim of
Biden
listening
has
to
an
losing
election
an
coming up. He
election.
does have to care about public opinion, and public opinion is very rapidly souring on Biden's complicity in these war crimes.
Andreas, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but it looked like you were reacting to what
I'm
Kenneth was saying there, so I want to give you a
that
chance to
Biden's
jump in
going
if
to
you wanted
use that as a campaign thing for his election.
ICMP, the International Commission on Missing Persons, has made it very clear that it stands ready to assist mass graves in the investigation at the request of authorities. And that move will, of course, have to have the backing of the United Nations. It will have to have the backing of the parties. We fully understand that there are big question marks whether the parties will be willing to permit a forensic investigation on the ground. I would want to, however, underline, as was said earlier, that it is not excluded carrying out such an independent investigation in the short term if conditions, and in particular the participation or the permission of the parties is present. I think that's to be kept in mind. And while I fully understand, and it's absolutely understandable to see a disappointment with international organizations in particular,
You'd be talking about these
one has to keep in
Palestinian
mind
lives
that
like
international organizations do depend
it's a video
on
game.
the
You're just talking
willingness
about
of parties to
disappointments.
cooperate.
Shit is wild.
Mansour, despite where things stand right now, despite how dire the situation is in Gaza, are you hopeful that eventually there will be accountability? Do you think that there will be sufficient pressure on Israel that in the long term there will be
The
accountability?
shift is coming.
100%. I am hopeful together with all other Palestinians and those who love freedom around the world. History repeats itself. Look what happened in South Africa. Something similar is going to happen here in Gaza and Palestine. It's just a matter of time. I think slowly international pressure, if you look at the macro politics, it's changing. If you look at the moods of the people, it's changing. If you look at the media covering, it's changing. So I think it will happen. It's just a matter of time. But the question is, how much more will the Palestinians in Gaza need to suffer before this time comes in? And I hope not any more time.
I like to wager 100,000 Palestinians will die before they stop it. I'm just saying.
No, I bet Biden's
All
going
right,
to
well,
say
we
that.
have run out of time, so we're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thanks so much to all of our guests today, Mansour Shuman, Andreas Kleiser, and Kenneth Roth.
Israel and Palestine.
And thank you, too, for watching. You can see the program again anytime by visiting our website, aljazeera.com. And for further discussion, go to our Facebook page. That's facebook.com/AJ Inside Story. You can also join the conversation on X. Our handle is @AJ Inside Story. From me, Mohammed Jamjoom, and the entire team here. Bye for now.
Maintenance. What is this award? Okay, finally, they removed the maintenance of street for economic can beat some people up.
No, I first met our next guest in Gaza. Now he's in Britain. He's a journalist of note and commentator. Yusuf Al-Hellu joins us now. Yusuf, my condolences and the condolences of all of our viewers at the frankly unimaginable agony that people like you from Gaza with families still there must be enduring on an hourly basis as each new atrocity unfolds. Tell us something about how it feels.
Thank you very much, George, for having me. I always like to start by saying that I didn't ask to be Palestinian. I just got lucky. My family survived 200 days of a brutal genocide. Now, people in Gaza, they say, how on earth that the world is allowing this digital genocide to go on for nearly 7 months. This is the first genocide that's being percussed by the victims, George, and people have been documenting the moment of their own death. Like the rest of the population, my family is still in the north. They experienced starvation. Things are a little bit better now. There is international pressure mounting Israel, especially after it killed 6 international aid workers in northern Gaza. You remember that, and that led to an international outcry. Of course, Gaza is my beloved city. I've been reporting on this genocide from a distance. I'm in touch with my family whenever there's a chance because there is a problem with the telecommunications. I lost my sister and nephews and nieces and scores of my cousins and relatives across the Gaza Strip. Of course, I met you, George, in Gaza. And Gaza is described as the capital of resistance. As a matter of fact, George, Israel hates the Palestinians of Gaza so much because we refuse to vanish. And as you put it very well, that we refuse to go to the museum. And 200 days, the world has been watching this madness, this genocide. And amid international apathy, amid international conspiracy of silence, it's ironic that the world is sending aid to Gaza, and at the same time, they are sending bombs to Israel to bomb the starved people in Gaza. Now, Israel actually, George, rules by terrorism. It has been terrorizing the Palestinians not only for the past 7 months, but for the past 75 years. Since its very inception, it was praised on committing massacres after massacres, violence, ethnic cleansing, and it has been using Gaza as a testing ground for its advanced weapons and also for the American and German weapons against defenseless civilian population. It has been using Gaza as a scapegoat to scare and terrorize its neighbors. And we know that Israel enjoys a culture of impunity, and this impunity emboldens Israel's crimes. So if the world is allowing Israel to carry on a genocide, then attacking an embassy in Syria or elsewhere is considered minimal. So this is the thing. Israel is allowed to set a dangerous precedent that it can do whatever it wants. It can unleash its military might, kill the children, snipers. They enjoy killing the children in Gaza as they are watching or playing a video game, attacking the hospitals, attacking the journalists, the paramedics. There is no red lines. Israel is a pariah, rogue state above the international law. It has never been held accountable, and it has been raising Gaza to the ground. They said from the very beginning that they will seek revenge and reduce Gaza to rubble. And my city is being reduced to rubble. I was the last journalist, George, to cover and film the beauty of Gaza, its historical sites, touristic places, although it has been closed for tourism because Gaza is considered the world's largest open air prison. But my preferred terminology is a concentration camp. And this concentration camp has been transformed into an extermination camp. people have nowhere to go. It's like a fishing barrel. Israel drops bombs and people flee here and there, internally displaced multiple times. They don't know where to go. The sea has been blockaded since 1967. Israel controls the sea, the land, the air. They controls what goes in, what goes out. The reconnaissance drones that fly over Gaza for the past 7 months means that people hadn't any proper sleep for the past 7 months. Only they had one night sleep when Iran attacked Israel. That was the only night that people felt that somehow they have a little bit of relief. So as long as this genocide is ongoing, then we will see more Palestinians are being killed and maimed. And this is to do also with the hypocrisy and the double standard policy practiced by the international community. I would like to see my family, be safe. They are split between northern Gaza and southern Gaza. And to leave Gaza is not an easy mission. People have to pay the Egyptians a bribe up to $7,000 per head in order to leave. And this is really annoying that the Palestinians are being extorted. Our suffering is being exploited by different forces in the region. It seems that we are being dehumanized, demonized, and Israel wants any justification to attack the Palestinians because they say that you Palestinians, you have celebrated what happened on the 7th of October, and no one is innocent, and your children are children of darkness, and they will become terrorists one day, kill them all, and nuke them. The Israelis, they don't consider us as human beings, and they have been using us as a fuel for their election campaigns. So Netanyahu, he is prolonging this genocide in order to survive, in order to avoid being persecuted and go to jail. And he will also lost allies. The U.S. administration divided himself. So it seems that Israel is sending a message to the world that it is against the international law, and it is also sending a message that the Zionist lobby is the one is ruling the White House. So we would like to see an end to this genocide, but for how long it's going to go on, we don't know. We pray that our families will be safe, and we pray that may Allah accept the martyrs, our families, and we would like to see Palestinians gain their freedom. It's not acceptable that in the 21st century people are being starved to death. It's not acceptable that Israel, justifies its attacks by saying that people are being used as human shields. There's so much to talk about, George. But if I would like to summarize what's ongoing in Gaza, it's a genocide like no other. And we Palestinians, we will not vanish again. We will continue to be steadfast and resilient people, and we will continue to inspire the rest of the world. All what we are asking for is liberation and freedom to live with dignity and to be treated as human beings.
So crazy about the fact that he says,
Now, you mentioned forces in the region,
so crazy
and you
about
touched on the role of the
that? To
Egyptian
endure means they
state
have to
and
die.
its official. In
Yeah, they
this,
have to die.
They have to sit
one,
there and die
place
until
where
they
there
died
has
so
been
much
a great deal
that
of
it's just
support for the Palestinian
incomprehensible,
people
and then the
is
world will
in
jump
Lebanon.
in. So
Where
they're doomed. They're
the
going to
head
die
of
no
the
matter what.
Israeli military today said Hezbollah is close to being defeated. I've no idea what he means by that, or whether that could conceivably be accurate. Why did he say it, and is it true?
I think Israel will never feel safe as long as it is occupying Palestinian lands and Arab lands. And it is being supported by the US administration. Israel has been trying to drag the feet of the Americans into a regional war by attacking Iran and its proxies in the region, Iraq, Yemen, and Hezbollah. They know that if they are to go into a war with Hezbollah, they will have to bear the consequences, because Hezbollah has been improving its capabilities. And of course, Hezbollah is stronger than the resistance in Gaza. Israel is an arrogant state. They just want to give you the impression that they are able to crush any uprisings here and there. But if this is going to materialize, we don't know. We know that yesterday a number of rockets and drones. They struck places in Akka, in Jaffa, and we've seen how the settlers they run for cover to hide in bunkers. I don't think Israel is interested to widen its conflict. It is only sending messages here and there that it is targeting minimal targets, military targets to Hezbollah. And because they don't want to lose the chance of attacking Rafah in the south. That's why they are trying to have balance. The Palestinians, of course, they pin their hopes on the conscious people of the wall, the freedom level of the wall. And the Palestinians, as a matter of fact, they got relief when Iran intervened, because it was the first time ever the Palestinians saw these rockets land into occupied Palestine since the 1990s, since Saddam sent his rockets to Israel.
I was there actually on the roof of Miss Shawa's very small hotel in Gaza when the Iraqi Scuds were arriving in Tel Aviv. I saw them with my own eyes. The Houthis are the only Arab country, Yemen is the only Arab country that has applied the strictest form of economic sanctions against Israel by interdicting their trade routes. They've cost the Israeli economy very, very dearly, which is why we're all supposed to now hate the Yemeni. What's your attitude to that?
That's why the rest of the Arab world, especially those countries who normalized ties with Israel, are embarrassed to see Yemen, which has been under war for a long time, poor country, that they are rushing to help the Palestinians and to try to stage more of attrition with Israel. The Palestinians, if you ask them, they lost hope to get any support from the strong Arab countries in the region. Of course, they appreciate the role of Yemen, Iraq, Lebanon. They say, look, the Palestinian cause does not only concern the Palestinians. Al-Aqsa Mosque does not only belong to Palestinians. The holy city of Jerusalem and Quds does not only belong to Palestinian Muslims. The whole Muslim world, the whole Arab Ummah must intervene and help the Palestinians, at least to boost the morale of the Palestinians. When you see some Arab countries, they block the Palestinians from entering their countries and charge Palestinians a huge amount of money in order to escape the genocide. This is a letdown. This is a big disappointment, to be honest.
Now, your family are there. If you were Ukrainian, there would be a special lane for your family, fast track at the airport. Your family would be here with you. What members of your family have you still got in Gaza? And why can't you get them out?
I still got my parents, my siblings, their families. You're talking about maybe 50 members. And I try my best to get them to safety, but it's not possible without having connections in the Egyptian side. And it's not possible to get them out without paying the required fees or bribes. The reason why that we are unable to get them is due to the bureaucracy on part of the British government. I'm British citizen, and we have been lobbying the Home Office, the Foreign Office. We've sent many letters to the Parliament. We did, a number of campaigns online, and we haven't got any positive response. It has been negative. They say that the Ukrainian family union scheme was one-off scheme, and things are different. You cannot compare Palestine with Ukraine. Of course, there's hypocrisy. There's double standard policy. British people, they had the chance to sponsor families from Ukraine. Approximately 300,000 Ukrainians were brought to the UK. It's a good thing. It's a noble thing to do, because Britain portrays itself as a sanctuary place to welcome refugees. But when it comes to Palestinians, it's a different story. They say, can you prove that none of them affiliated to Hamas? They say that Israel has the right to defend itself. They don't want to bring Palestinians into the UK because they don't want to put the finger on the Israelis and say they are responsible for their misery. So we are dismayed. We feel that we are abandoned by our government in the UK here, since we are British citizens. We are approximately 300 British passport holders from Gaza, and if this scheme has to be approved by the UK government, our family members wouldn't exceed 5,000 members, whereas every day, hundreds of people come to the UK illegally. So what I'm trying to say, we are trying to highlight the hypocrisy and the double standard policy. The UK must stop its supplying weapons to Israel. It must exercise its diplomacy in order to, put some sort of pressure on the Israelis and say, look, you cannot do this forever. And we hold Great Britain, full responsibility for our suffering since 1917, when Balfour promised a homeland for the Jews at the expense of the Palestinian people. So Britain must apologize for this injustice. They must provide compensation for millions of Palestinians who became refugees in 1948 and in 1967, and it must recognize the Palestinian state, and it must allow us to feed our families. That's why, we feel that we are neglected, and unfortunately, because we are not white, this is happening to us.
Finally, you're well aware of how Palestine has won the heart of millions of British people, but not, alas, in the main political party, the Conservatives and Labour, and even as of today, newly, the Liberal Democrats. How does it make you feel when, for example, the exchanges today that I referred to, where Marie Black of the SNP demanded some government action, or even just condemnation of mass graves, to see her disdainfully dismissed, and Israel, the source of all the suffering that you've just described, is called a democracy that is fit to investigate itself. How does that make you feel, the British political class?
I've listened to her speech, and it's good to see and hear some statements by some officials that call on the UK Prime Minister to really feel how the Palestinians feel. We feel the injustice that we have been suffering and going through for the past 7 decades. Unfortunately, when we see the UK Prime Minister pledges over, millions and billions of money to Ukraine a few days ago, whereas the Palestinians who are being starved to death, the treatment is obvious that we don't count in the eyes of the British elite. And that's why so many people, they are not going to vote for even Labour or Conservative. And a number of people, they are going to vote for independent figures, candidates. I might nominate myself, by the way, and I need your support, George, because people, they don't really trust the political elite anymore. When it comes to issues like Palestine, people have been let down. We see millions of British people took to the streets of London and across the UK, and they have been demanding for ceasefire for 7 months. And the British government does not listen. Why? This is the question. Do they have agenda? When we see Suella Braverman, she continues until this moment to incite against these demonstrations in London, calling them hate marches, and accuse those who are taking part in these marches, including Jews and anti-Semite. It seems that they split allegiances. Are they working for the Israeli government, or are they working for the British government? This is the question. They must work for the interests of the British people and listen to their demands.
Yeah. We first met when I broke the siege on Gaza with a land convoy. Two of the people on that convoy, John Hurson from Ireland and Dr. Yvonne Ridley from Britain, were on that convoy, and they've just taken to sea out of Turkey on the latest flotilla to try and sail aid into Gaza. The whole audience will wish them well and bon voyage. But we know what happened to the Mavi Marmara, the Turkish ship that sailed to bring in aid to Gaza. It was boarded by Israeli paratroopers, and 10 people were shot dead on the deck of the ship. How do you think this latest flotilla is going to fare?
It's a very important mission to highlight the Israeli siege post in Gaza. Even though if this flotilla does not reach Gaza, the message has reached Gaza, and the Israelis are already threatening to block this flotilla. I was there in Istanbul a few days ago, and I reported from inside one of those ships. I met many international activists, pro-Palestine supporters, and hopefully they will set sail in the coming day or two. But we know there is a pressure mounting on the organizers to cancel it, a pressure mainly imposed by the Americans, Turkey. But the international activists, they are prepared, and they took training how to act, how to respond in case the Israeli commando forces descended on the ship, and they are willing to take all the sacrifices. They say that what the Palestinians of Gaza have been subject to the past 7 months is nothing compared to what we are facing.
Okay, fine. I can see
because
why.
they are international, aid workers or white people. They might have some immunity. They might have some protection. I mean, but we know that the Israelis, they don't respect anybody. They killed international aid workers. They killed British
Well, they're not
journalists,
all white.
Richard
They're
Corey.
not all white, Yusuf. Nelson
Yeah.
Mandela's grandson is among them.
Oh, yes.
Thanks
Yeah, I saw that.
for your wisdom. I do hope you get your family out, and if there's anything we can do to help that, please let us know, Yusuf.
Thank you very much.
Palestinian political commentator and journalist.
Hello, namaskar. This is First Post, and you're watching Vantage with me, Palkisha.
People speak with that shit.
It's been an interesting news day. War has taken a backseat, and thank God for that. In focus tonight is the national sale in China, where the government is offering discounts on washing machines and cars. You may ask why. This is their grand plan to revive the Chinese economy. Does it make sense? Will it work? We'll bring you the projections. Meanwhile, in the US, college campuses have become political battlegrounds. There are widespread protests and arrests over the Israel-Hamas war. In West Asia, Turkey and Iraq have signed a major deal. We'll tell you why this is politically and economically significant for the region. In the UK, Rishi Sunak's controversial Rwanda deportation bill has been passed. Why is it a win for the Prime Minister? How deepfakes are disrupting the election in India, with dead leaders turning up to campaign. Why Pakistan's ban on X is a problem, but America's impending ban on TikTok can be justified. Is Russia jamming GPS of flights over Europe? What will this appraisal season look like? What is a dry promotion? Why Saudi Arabia's NEOM project is in trouble, and why trying something new will help you. We'll explain the headlines first. Over 200 aftershocks hit Taiwan. It comes more than 2 weeks after a deadly earthquake struck the island. The tremors lasted for over 12 hours. There were no casualties. On the 3rd of April, Taiwan was hit by its strongest quake in 25 years. Since then, there have been more than 1,000 aftershocks. Hezbollah says it has launched a drone attack on Israeli bases. Earlier today, an Israeli drone strike killed one of its members in South Lebanon. This is Hezbollah's deepest strike into Israeli territory since the Gaza war began. Since October, tensions between the two have been escalating. Ukraine wants to bring military-aged men home to fight against Russia. This month, Kiev toughened penalties for draft dodgers. and also lowered the age of mobilization by 2 years to 25. Ukraine is struggling in the battlefield amid relentless Russian attacks. Armenia and Azerbaijan start border demarcation work. It's part of the normalization efforts between the regional foes. Last month, Yerevan agreed to Baku's demand to return 4 border villages. The two countries have been locked in a decades-long conflict over Nagorno-Karabakh. And good news for Indian travelers, the new Schengen visa rules will ease travel to Europe. Indians can now get multiple entry Schengen visas with an extended validity period. 25 out of 27 European Union countries are part of the Schengen area. Our lead story tonight is about the greatest sale on earth. And no, this is not at your local supermarket or e-commerce platform or your favorite fashion label. This is about an announcement in China. Their government has launched a great sale for the people, for them to buy new cars and appliances like washing machines. And they're being offered big discounts by the Chinese state, meaning the government is subsidizing these purchases. Just imagine this, an entire country being offered subsidies for shopping. And not just any other country, this is the world's second largest economy. But why is China doing it? Why is it so desperate to send its people shopping? Because their economy is hurting and they want to revive it. The Wuhan virus tanked their growth and President Xi Jinping made it worse. Now, to be fair, China's GDP grew by 5.3%. This was in the last quarter. So not so bad for an economy of their size, but the target they set was much higher. And this is the slowest growth in many, many years. So Beijing is quite worked up. And this is the solution they've come up with, a national sale sponsored by the government. This is what they plan to do. Beijing is in charge of the planning. Local governments have been roped in for the execution. They've been given broad priorities and targets to get people to buy household appliances, like your daily appliances and cars. People should buy them and replace or upgrade their old ones. And for that, they will get discounts, especially on electric cars, also on air conditioners, refrigerators, and washing machines. They will all be subsidized to encourage people to buy. The government also has a plan for heavy industries like your petrochemical and steel. Here, the focus is on machinery and equipment. And the first announcement has come from the city of Suzhou. It is located in the east. This city has launched its subsidy program. Suzhou has set aside over $13 million for car subsidies. So if a local resident wants to get a new car, they can get a discount of almost $1,000. For appliances, they have set aside over $2 million. There's a discount of around $200 for every item you buy. And other Chinese cities are expected to roll out similar offers. But how does it help the government? How will this sale boost China's economic growth? Beijing is betting on simple rules of economics. Boost spending to revive growth. Get more people to buy by offering discounts. And this should bump up sales. Or so they hope. But here's what experts say. Retail sales will see a jump of just 0.5%. And this will lift China's economy by 0.6%. That's what Goldman Sachs is predicting. 0.6% growth. Here's another report. It says China's growth will rise by 0.7% after this exercise. So the overall impact will be modest. This grand sale may not have a big bang effect. If Beijing wants a meaningful jump, it may want to look at its military budgets and by extension, its priorities. They need urgent revision. A top American general has made a statement. His name is Admiral John Aquilino. He is America's Indo-Pacific commander, and he says the Chinese economy is failing. Their economic data is quote-unquote not real, and despite this economic crisis, they're spending aggressively on the military. In fact, let me quote from what he said. Despite a failing economy, there's a conscious decision to fund military capability, and that is concerning to me. And it may or may not be concerning to him, but it should bother the people of China. They've had an unwritten, unspoken pact with the Communist Party. It continues to rule as it pleases. It continues to curb political and other freedoms. And in return, it delivers growth and economic prosperity for the people of China. That's been the deal so far. But now the Communist Party is not delivering its side of the bargain. The prosperity they promise is at risk. The Chinese economy needs a bailout, a real stimulus package, not discount coupons for appliances and cars. Xi Jinping won't do that. He has put the military above the economy so that the PLA can fight future wars. The question is, who will bear the cost of this military supremacy that he's aiming for? How will Xi Jinping fund these wars if the Chinese economy tanks? It's a vulnerability that the US wants to exploit. Reports say Washington is looking to sanction Chinese banks. We don't have the names yet, but we can tell you on what grounds these sanctions could be imposed. The US accuses Chinese banks of helping Russia and its war machine. Now, Russia's banking system, we know, is already under international sanctions. The charge is that Chinese banks are helping Russia circumvent these sanctions. At least that's what the US says. China, of course, denies it.
It is extremely hypocritical and irresponsible for the US to introduce a large-scale aid bill for Ukraine while making groundless accusations against normal economic and trade exchanges between China and Russia. China firmly opposes this.
The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken is visiting China this week. Will he bring this up? Well, we'll have to wait and see. But one thing is quite clear. China's economic boom fueled its rise as a global power. And now China's president has overplayed his hand. So both the economy and the power are at risk.
That's what I'm saying, but that's what I'm going to ask him to
The United States has a new
I don't think it's
battleground.
about the patients. I think it's
Their
about
college
how
campus.
much would they
We're talking about
charge.
elite
And
institutions
this is
here,
one thing,
like
but
Yale,
this,
Columbia,
I don't
and
know
MIT.
if this is possible.
All of them have been gripped by student protests. Over what? Israel's war in Gaza. It has split these campuses down the middle. We'll start with Columbia. Protesting students occupied the campus lawn last week. And what did they want? Support for Palestine. They asked the university to disclose ties to Israel, also any aid they received from companies investing in Israel. But this protest was not authorized, so the college called in police officers. Around 100 students were arrested and taken away. Take a look at this. That was Columbia. But now the protests have spread. On Monday, students at New York University began demonstrations. They occupied a plaza in Manhattan, again without permission. So late at night, the police moved in. They arrested dozens of students. Finally, there were protests in Yale. Dozens of students blocked roads near the campus. Around 45 of them were arrested. Imagine if this happened in Delhi or Dhaka. Students dragged away and arrested from their campus. Protests broken up by police officers. The Western outrage would have been immeasurable. But now the world is silent. No criticism, no lectures or outrage. It's as if arresting college students is business as usual. Just another day in the land of freedom. But all of this raises an important question too. Why are US colleges so divided? And it's not just these elite ones. Campuses across the country have reported protests. There seem to be two camps here. One is the pro-Palestine camp. They condemn Israel's war in Gaza. They also want their college to disclose any ties to Israel, maybe a donor or an investment or a corporate partnership. This group says the US and Israel are conducting a genocide. The other side is the pro-Israel camp. They ask, how can you forget October 7th? Why don't you criticize what Hamas did? Even President Joe Biden has waded in. He condemned anti-Semitism on US campuses.
I condemn the anti-Semitic protests. That's why I've set up a program to deal with that. I also condemn those who don't understand what's going on with the Palestinians.
This is tricky for a couple of reasons. A, colleges have become very diverse, so it's not just an ideological battle for the students, it's also a personal one. Some of them may be of Arab descent, others may be Jews, so the passions can fire up quickly. And B, both sides have a point. You cannot deny that Israel has crossed many red lines in Gaza. You also cannot deny what happened on October 7th, and therein lies the problem. Neither side is willing to listen to the other. Both camps are sticking to extreme positions. So what's the way out? Well, first up, you must acknowledge the problem. Around 73% Jewish students have experienced anti-Semitism on US campuses. It has only increased after the Hamas attack. Same with Islamophobia. Anti-Muslim incidents increased by 216% after October 7th. So both communities are under threat. The question is, what should be done? It's easy to crack down on student protests. It's also easy to trash the idea of student politics. But that's not the answer. College politics plays an important role in every society, and the US, of all places, should know this. In the 1960s, campuses became the hub of protests against the Vietnam War. Eventually, they forced the US to end that war. So student politics is not the problem. How it's carried out may be a problem. For starters, you cannot let it be hijacked. There are career protesters out on the streets, people who have nothing to do with students or colleges. They see a protest and they jump in. And Colombia's president is worried about this. Look at her statement. These tensions have been exploited and amplified by individuals who are not affiliated with Colombia, who have come to campus to pursue their own agendas.
Wants to rematch me.
And this is not just a Colombia problem, it's a problem everywhere. So it's important that student protests are carried out by students, not political parties, not activists, and not NGOs. Equally important is peace and decency. Your protest cannot cross certain red lines, but in many US campuses, it has. We've heard chants like death to Israel, death to Zionists, and even some pro-Hamas slogans. Listen to this student protester at Columbia.
You're what? You're what?
And this cannot be accepted. Your freedom of expression cannot be a call for genocide. Same with violence. Just consider what is happening in Colombia, and all in-person classes have been cancelled there. Why? Because teachers and students cannot reach the campus. They've been blocked by pro-Palestine groups. Again, this is not acceptable. So what we need is moderate politics. You're free to disagree with other students, but you must hear them out first, and you cannot abuse or cancel them. Plus, student demands must be carefully thought through. Asking your university to criticize Israel is one thing, but asking it to abandon Israeli donors is quite another. There's a lot at stake here, maybe scholarships or infrastructure projects or faculty payments. So it's not a call for students to make. It's a decision that is taken by responsible administrators, and the students must remember this. Their protests and voice carry a lot of weight, but it must be exercised responsibly.
Come on.
War is not the only thing happening in West Asia. There is progress too, and it's coming from an unlikely place. War-torn Iraq. On Monday, Turkish President Erdogan visited the country. It was a pretty rare visit for him. Erdogan last traveled to Iraq in 2011. And since then, relations have suffered. So this trip was all about resetting ties. He got a guard of honor in Baghdad. He met the Prime Minister of Iraq and signed around 20 deals. One of them stands out. A four-way agreement for a transport corridor. It's called the Development Road Project. The plan is to link Iraq's Gulf Coast to Turkey. How? With a series of roads and railways. And from Turkey, this route can extend to Europe. So basically, a Europe to Asia corridor. How much will it cost? Around $17 billion. Along with Iraq and Turkey, two other West Asian players are involved. That's the UAE and Qatar. Their ministers were also in Baghdad on Monday. All of them signed an agreement to build this corridor. But how will it impact the region? For Iraq, it could be a game changer. Better infrastructure, easy access to oil fields, and more trades. They may not have the funds to do it alone, but with Qatar and the UAE, they can. Same for Erdogan. He wants to leverage his country's location. You see, Turkey straddles two continents, Europe and Asia. So it's prime real estate for a cross-continental corridor.
Really?
Erdogan says the
actually
project will
cannot
bring
dictate.
stability and prosperity to the region.
It's a real. What?
Oh man. I'm gonna listen to one more thing.
No, you can't. Why am I? Stop doing the spin kick. Wow, really, really, really. What? How is he picking up these inputs quick? And he's quitting. Not even a best of the three. He's trying to speed run the shit. Oh, hold on a second. I need to check the replays. Because something was not right here. Even if he was using a hitbox control, he can't
to support everyone here against the oppression of Columbia University. Please come closer. Please come closer as Professor Norman Finkelstein gives his remarks to everyone here in support of the Columbia University Apartheid Divest movement on campus that has now inspired a big movement across U.S. universities. So let me introduce Professor Norman Finkelstein.
Thank you for inviting me, and thank you for, I'm not sure, I think we're better than that, okay? Right? I don't think I can, that's the problem. Thank you for inviting me, and I'm here. I'm not much of a rally speaker. I'm not like my friend Cornel West. I'm more of a seminar speaker. So I don't want to give a pep rally or a pep speech. Basically, I would just like to make a few elementary comments and then hopefully hear from you. I suspect some, and maybe a majority of you, are familiar with my opinions, and if you would like to ask me about any of them, I think this is as good an occasion as any for us to have a substantive and productive dialogue. I don't have knowledge about the situation at Columbia other than what one would know from reading the newspapers. And I did watch President Stefanik's testimony at that tribunal. So I am familiar with what she had to say. Obviously, it was a disappointment. My own view was that it was an utterly impossible situation that she was placed. I'm not making any excuses for what she had to say, but I'm not sure how one could have navigated that situation. It was basically carrying below and vultures above. And it was, as I said, in my opinion, an impossible situation, even as I fully acknowledge what she had to say was wholly unacceptable, and one might also say it was cowardly, and one might say that she certainly did have a minimum obligation, a bare minimum obligation to defend the principle of academic freedom, and she did not do that. One commentary I read stated that the two words one never heard during that interrogation were academic freedom. And the fact that she chose not to go there was, in my view, wholly unacceptable. As to the movement itself, I don't want to claim any kind of expertise, and I have to always be careful of appearing to be condescending, patronizing, and being all wise in these matters. I would simply say, based on my experience, the most important things are organization, leadership, and having in one's mind clear objectives. And clear objectives means basically two things. One is slogans that are going to unite and not divide. In my youth, when I was roughly your age, or actually your age, I was what was called back in the day, I was a Maoist, a follower of Chairman Mao in China. And one of the slogans which he was famously associated with him was the slogan, unite the many to defeat the few. And that means at any juncture in a political struggle, you have to figure out how can you unite the many and isolate the few with a clear objective in mind. Obviously, you don't want to unite the many for with a goal or an objective, which is not your objective. So you have to figure out, having your objective in mind, what is the slogan which will work the best to unite the many and defeat the few. I was gratified that the movement as a whole, shortly after October 7th, spontaneously, intuitively, they grasped the right, in my opinion, the right slogan. And the slogan was ceasefire now. Now, some of you might think in retrospect, well, what was so brilliant about that slogan? Wasn't it obvious? But in fact, political slogans are never obvious. There are all sorts of routes and paths and byways that people can go down, which are very, in my opinion, destructive to the movement. And I found the fact that it wasn't a leadership decision, I don't think. It was a spontaneous, intuitive sense by the protesters. The right slogan at this moment is ceasefire now.
Nice.
I would also say, in my opinion, I'm trying to discuss brass tacks, not high theory. In my opinion, the slogans have to be as clear as possible, leaving no room for ambiguity and no room for misinterpretation, a misinterpretation that's exploited to discredit a movement. So if you take the history of struggle, there was the famous slogan going all the way back to the late 1800s, the 8-hour working day. It was a clear slogan. We want an 8-hour working day. And more recently, in your own living memory, for all the disappointments, in my opinion, of the Bernie Sanders candidacy, I do believe one of the geniuses of his candidacy, for all the disappointment, was because he had 40, 50 years of experience on the left end of the political spectrum. You might think, what's so smart about that slogan? It was a very good slogan. He knew that he could reach, using Chairman Mao's not concept, but Chairman Mao's political insight. He knew he could reach 80% of Americans with that slogan. That slogan was going to resonate with 80% of the American people. He knew abolish student debt, free college tuition. It was going to resonate with a large part of his potential constituency. He didn't go beyond what was possible at that particular moment. He didn't go beyond it.
All right,
but
guys.
I do think he reached what you might call the political limit. The limit at that point in his was roughly
what's going on in the
jobs
world.
for all, public
and all
work
that jazz.
program,
I'll
Green New
check you guys
Deal,
over the weekend if anything.
Medicare for all,
See you guys later.
debt,
Good night.
and free